Hi, I'm Jay Richards. We're here at the COSM 2021 conference in not so sunny Bellevue, Washington, and I'm joined by Jules Urbach, who is the founder of Otoy, and you've spoken at some other Gilder conferences. I think the first time we met in 2008.
That's right, going back 13 years.
Yeah, exactly. I remember actually you were working, I think, on Transformers, the movie at the time, and I thought it's one of the best. We were on a shuttle bus for an hour and a half together, and I thought this was really engaging.
It's funny. Yeah, that ad that we did for the Transformers film, I still show that, but now I show it running on an iPhone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly.
And instead of the cloud, and it's funny because technology evolves to the point where things, the whole point of that was we can do real-time rendering, and it doesn't require massive server farms. We also showed it at the NVIDIA conference in 2013. I went on stage with Jensen to show how it could be done on hundreds of GPUs, and here we are, 2021. I bring out my iPhone and I can render that same ad live on a device that hundreds of millions of people have. It's crazy.
No, it really is. And so the panel yesterday, so for people that weren't at the conference, so it was you, George Gilder, and Bill Dembski, the philosopher of science, and you were talking about the nature of property and this thing called NFTs. Tell what is, let's just start there. What are those?
Well, nature of property is probably a philosophical discussion, but I think for NFTs, I can sort of summarize it as it is a certificate of authenticity on a digital ledger, namely the blockchain.
Okay.
So the blockchain, of course, most people are familiar with Bitcoin now, right? The blockchain ensures that if you say you have a Bitcoin and you have a wallet, it is in your wallet, right? So an NFT takes that one step further, which is this smart contract says you own something else in your wallet, and that something else typically is an image or a media file. In a perfect world, that would also be something that would also be on the blockchain. But today, a lot of NFTs are JPEG anywhere in the world. It could be on a web server. Even the most famous one, Beeple's, which was 69 million.
Yeah,
it's on a server in niftygateway.com's Cloudflare, thing. So it's kind of, I think the point was, we should make something that's a little bit more solid. And the truth is the NFT ecosystem probably agrees with that. And there's a lot of work being done towards better blockchains, better NFTs, better provenance that can describe really on chain the whole work. And that's a work in progress, but it's being solved, I think, pretty much this year with a lot of new technologies.
Well, and this was news to me because I assumed that NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, were that somehow they need to be unique, really, to be property. And of course, digital files by definition aren't. And so I think I had assumed, well, they must be on the blockchain somewhere, but they're not, as you said. So this $69 million piece of property that's sitting on a separate server, which sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is crazy. Now, there is something that people should understand, and I made that point yesterday about NFTs, which is there's a lot of social currency that goes into people buying NFTs, owning NFTs, making NFTs, and trading NFTs. And people who is a friend of mine and colleagues on our advisory board, and I was with him. I mean, literally, he and I were talking when he sold his first $1 million NFT in November of last year, ancient times in the NFT space. There's a lot of things that he and I were talking about. It's like NFTs are really a link to something that maybe is the image or not. And there's a lot of work that we've been doing, and it's not just us, towards putting the actual artwork itself on chain. The technology to do that on Ethereum, which is where most NFTs are minted, is impossible. It's really slow. It's a mess. But that's changing. There's newer blockchains. We were talking about Solana yesterday. We recently announced a major, we're just all in on Solana. I personally think it'll overtake Bitcoin and Ethereum as the next major chain. It solves all of the major problems that we see for NFTs, for speed, transaction velocity, and more importantly, a lot of the problems that were brought up as real issues for NFTs, for example, storage. People want to be able to buy this thing with $1, maybe get paid in dollars, not just in crypto.
Right.
That will work on Solana. That's all solved. And I think, I don't want to speak for people and others, but I know a ton of our artists are really looking to Solana as kind of a future, a forward-looking solution to a lot of the problems that are in the NFT space. So for us to provide the tools and the ecosystem that connects to that is something that artists that use our tools today to make NFTs, and there's been about $700 million worth of sales of NFTs done by artists using Octane Render, which is our tool. And we want to bring all that to Solana and more, and maybe make that something that really works better for an even larger group of creators and artists coming into the system.
Well, and so though the panel was about NFTs and property, you talked about the stuff that you're doing, these kind of amazing renderings. I don't even know how to describe it, that they themselves, in which you create these worlds that can then themselves be NFTs. So talk a bit about that.
Well, that's a great point, because I think NFTs, as they've been defined, are almost too simple in describing what you can do on the blockchain. And there's a lot of talk about the metaverse. I think Facebook's transition to Meta, and just a lot of companies from NVIDIA to Apple to others describing Microsoft, all talk about the metaverse. I think it's important to say the metaverse in a simple sense is the internet, but in space, in 3D. In other words, instead of going to a web page, you can go to a virtual 3D building, do things in there. But the standards around that and how this works are still pretty early.
Yeah.
But everyone feels, I say everyone, I'm speaking for the majority of my industry and the industry at large, feels that the blockchain is going to be a big part of that, because rather than building it on a set of servers and on the current web page model or the app model, you'll have a decentralized way of describing a 3D asset or a 3D system. And that's what we're trying to build, so that NFTs become not just an image, but the actual system itself. Like, for example, I use the Starship Enterprise.
Right.
The Roddenberry estate, my best friend's dad was Gene Roddenberry, and I've been working on this project for 20 years. But we now have all of the original designers of the ship working with us to build this quiescent 3D model that can, you can render it and it'll look exactly like you did on the show. Every episode, everything is tracked. It's the entire history of Star Trek, not just the ship, embodied in this on-chain system. And it's not just a 3D model, it's all of the possible ways you can render it and experience that story. That is kind of the NFT of the future.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily something you have to buy or own or sell. You can visit it, you can tell stories in it and have royalties flow back to the creators. It's such a deeper system. And that's where people are saying, well, if you could do this with a credit card and a web page, why do you need the blockchain? Yeah. This is why the blockchain is important. You can create just massive flows of history and composition, and that is something that's kind of missing on the web today, and certainly in apps. They're very vertical. There's not a lot of crosstalk. And the idea of the metaverse and even the future of NFTs is somebody can create something, others can build on it, everyone makes money, and it's additive. And that's the promise of the tech.
Okay, so where do you think things are going to be 10 years from now, if you had to guess?
I would say one piece of amazing technology that I think will be a lot more prevalent is holographic displays. So in other words, if you're talking about the metaverse being 3D objects that you can see and look around, imagine doing that without any glasses, without any head tracking. It's just a window into that world will be possible with holographic displays. I'm pretty sure all the major mobile phone companies, whether they're doing software or hardware, are going to be also supporting glasses that'll be, hopefully by the 2030s, will be something that'll be as lightweight as a pair of sunglasses. That's certainly the goal. And then I think you're going to have something that just absolutely replaces both the web, the app store model, and desktops entirely. And that's pretty much what the metaverse will be. Hopefully it doesn't turn into some dystopian model. The open web is the model that I want to see happen. If only Mozilla had added a buy button. This is Brendan Eich, the creator of Mozilla, saying the one thing he regrets about how he designed the web, right? The open web. That would have been it. And we have that opportunity with the metaverse, with the blockchain, to sort of create that as the next major operating system and platform and truly fix everything that has gone wrong since the open web created these multi-trillion-dollar companies. And that's where I hopefully see the 2030s leading us.
So you think that this concern about properties, right? And that sort of you think that's going to be solved in fairly short order?
Oh, I 100% do. I mean, I feel like what's going to happen is you'll have a system where that's done right, and then all other systems will just decay because they don't do it correctly. Right,
and then what's a little odd about this is, of course, there's clearly a market, there's clearly a demand for these goods or services or whatever you want to call them, even though clearly the sort of policies around it are not quite in place. But of course, property is ultimately a matter of social convention in which everyone agrees, okay, so-and-so owns this, and the police recognize it, and everyone else recognizes it. And so it's a matter of sort of creating those systems, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you steal somebody's Bitcoin, you can go to jail for that. It's theft, and we've been working towards sort of the turning atoms to bits for a while, and not everything should be, atoms are
sure, we live in atoms,
but there is still something to be said for systems that are, especially if it's something that is fairly adjudicated for property and things like that. I mean, smart contracts kind of enforce the law to the letter, and I think it's up to us to sort of create a system where the spirit of the law that we want is also part of that too.
Yes.
And I think if we can solve that for art, which is what NFTs currently represent, or even access to certain things, that's a good starting point for more complex systems that really do sort of integrate with the real world, like property and other things. But I do see a programmable blockchain as a big part of that. I mean, if money is one of the big actuating forces in our physical atom-based world, right, can be encoded on the blockchain, and it's multiple trillions of dollars, I do think we can get much more on there and hopefully do it in a way that's healthy and good for society.
Jules Urbach, thanks for being with me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hope to see you again at another COSM conference.
Absolutely. I'll be there for sure.
This is Jay Richards. We're at COSM 2021.